How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to review the old legendary GTX 660 and its performance in 2020 and find out, can it still game on 1080p resolution. But before that, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe down below, and thank you for watching. So at this point, this old GTX 660 is almost 8 years old, as it originally came out back in the summer of 2012. And I must admit, I was quite surprised on some of the results that I got while testing some games for this video. Now the good news is that the 600 series is still supported by NVIDIA's latest drivers, which is good because it allows you to play all the latest titles out there. Of course, don't expect any crazy FPS, especially on 1080p. You should be able to get away with some low to medium settings on most of the games. But you know how it is nowadays, they make them harder and harder to run. But overall, I must admit, my experience with this card was pretty good. Now this specific model that I'll be testing today is the PNY XLR8 Performance Edition, which features 2 gigs of GDDR5 VRAM, 960 CUDA cores, 960 MHz of the core clock, and up to 1033 MHz on the boost. Also, it has the 192-bit memory interface and 140 watt TDP, which is pretty efficient, especially for old card like this, and you should be able to get away with a decent 500 watt power supply, especially if you want to overclock a little bit, and it does only require one 6-pin adapter. Now in my case, I was lucky enough to scoop this bad boy up for only $20 on the local Craigslist, and the condition of it was pretty good. Just a little bit dusty, and I did not need to open it up and change the thermal paste for today's test at all. The temperatures were pretty decent, especially given that it's a blower style graphics card. Because you know that's gonna run a little bit hotter than the dual fans ones, but overall I had good experience with this thing. Now for anybody who's looking for a graphics card like this, me personally, I would not spend more than $30 on this thing, because of the nature of the used market. There's many other options out there for anything over $30 to $40. You should be able to get better performance on other used cards. But overall, you know, between $20 and $30, that should be the right price for a used card like this. And you know, of course, depends what area you're in, and of course, you know, if you're limited to options, then you know, you might pay a little bit more money for this if you don't have access to some newer hardware. But overall, I think I do recommend this card if you get it at a really good price, you know, for a nice cheap build, save you some money, because it does have the capability to play a lot of the games on 1080p resolution still. Now before I get into some game testing, let me go over the rig that I'll be using for this video, so stay tuned for that. Now, in order for me to get the best possible results out of this old GTX 660, I'll be using a pretty decent rig, which consists of an i7 7700K, which is currently overclocked to 4.8 GHz, along with Asus Strix Z270H gaming motherboard, plus 16 gigs of DDR4 3000 MHz RAM running in dual channel. Now for the boot drive, I have a Samsung 960 EVO NVMe 250 GB. For the secondary drive, I have a Western Digital 1TB mechanical drive. Now as far as the power supply, I have a Corsair RM 750 watt fully modular gold rated. I always stress not to cheap out on a power supply, that way you can get the best possible results out of your build. Next, for cooling, as you could see, I have the Thermaltake fans. I have two 140mm fans up front and on the left side, along with the Corsair H100 all-in-one cooler. I have two 120mm RGB ring fans and one exhaust 120mm ring RGB fan right there, which could be controlled with the RGB controller, which is in the top right corner right there, as you could see. and all nicely packed in a Corsair Carbide 275R Black Edition, which is a beautiful case here, and it really brings out the best out of this build. Now, one last thing I must mention, I will be overclocking this graphics card here to really get the most out of this video here, out of the results that I'm going to show you. So yeah, that's pretty much it on that. Without further ado, let's get into some gaming test benchmarks, so stay tuned. Now, the first game I'll be testing out for this video is Battlefield 5. Now let me go over all the tweaks and the settings in order for me to get the best possible results out of the old GTX 660, and I'll also be maintaining these settings for the rest of the games tested in this video. Now, for the graphics card, I have it slightly overclocked by 100 megs on the core clock and 200 megahertz on the memory clock. And also the i7-7700K is currently overclocked to 5 gigahertz, and I am using 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM running at 3000 megahertz. I am also using my camera to record the performance here. That way there'll be no frame loss at all, and you'll get the most accurate frame rates possible. So let's get to it. As you can see, I am on 1080p and currently on the lowest possible settings, just to kind of show you what are the best possible frame rates you could get on the low settings. I will also go up to medium to give you an idea. I really think the medium is a sweet spot. The game is quite playable and it looks excellent. Now, of course, I would never recommend you using DirectX 12, especially for older card like this, so we are running on DirectX 11. Alright, now let me switch over to the medium settings. You could go to high settings also, but you know, it's going to be, in my opinion, a little bit too low, but still playable. But we'll just cap this off on medium settings. It still should be playable. Well, there you have it for this game. Let's see what it will be the next game to test, so stay tuned for that. Now for the second game that I'll be testing for this video is Gears 5. And I'm currently set on medium preset, and that's pretty much the only preset that I will stay on. As you can see, we're getting pretty decent FPS. Unfortunately, in this game, you're forced to use DirectX 12, but you could see it works pretty well. Now let me show you the settings really quick here. Here we are on 1080p Full HD. The game looks really good. All medium preset, and the only option is I always turn off the motion blur off. And actually I could even lower that down too there, and that's it. And we are getting around average 50 to 60 FPS, which is not bad, especially for this game.
You're coming out of that silo. There, we found one of the silos, but it's wrecked.
Oh, there's two more. One of them's still operational.
Well, as you can see, this game is more than playable on medium settings. So far, so good on the GTX 660. And also, after watching my video, be on the lookout on other games. I'm going to test about 4 games for this video, but I'm going to do other individual games, kind of just catch up to see where we are with these latest NVIDIA drivers. As of February 3rd, I believe that's the driver that I'm using.
So, Strix is an option. Or probably fixed it.
Let's find out. You guys go right, Marcus and I will go left. We'll find those things.
Sounds good.
Alright, on to the next game. And here we have the legendary Resident Evil 2. And I'm currently on low to medium settings. Let me just show you what I have here. That's it. Rendering mode on normal. Now if you change that to interlace, you will get at least 10 FPS more, but we're gonna stay on normal. Now interlace is not necessarily bad for this game. It just looks a little bit more dull, but really it's up to you. But that's always a way to get extra FPS by turning that option on. And we are right at the edge, right at the 2 gig threshold. As you could see, we're on some medium, mixture of some medium and low settings here. Pretty much the best experience you're gonna get with these settings when it comes to this old card, which is not bad at all.
This is not how I imagined my first day.
Well, as you can see, this game is running real nice on these settings here. Definitely quite playable. Well, that's it. Stay tuned for the last game. Now, for the last game I wanted to test here is Control. This is a much harder game to run, and I wanted to show you the power of the 660, that it could still run this game on 1080p, even though we're on the lowest settings possible. But the game still looks pretty good, and it's quite playable. Now, let me show you the settings here. There you have it. We are on full screen 1080p, and I have everything down to the lowest settings. I'm sure you could tweak maybe one thing here or there, but you know, you are gonna lose some FPS. Just want it to be playable. Well, we're coming to the end of this video here. Let me know what you guys think. Please leave any comments down below, and do subscribe and share this video. Help me out. Give me the opportunity to test out some of the newer hardware out there. And yeah, and thank you for watching, and have a good day.
Hello? Hey, excuse me.
There you are. You are here about the job. Janitor's assistant. You need to go to the interview. Go that way to the elevator.
Elevator that way. Got it.
Very good. You work for me. You can say I said.
I've done enough night shift loader jobs to know it makes us come off weird. Auntie the janitor is a friendly face in my book.
I took somebody with no face at all.
The cell and the poster. I was 11 years old the first time I saw behind the poster. They told me I imagined it. I've been trying to pull it down ever since. Will you help? Did I lose you there for a moment? You know what's on my mind. My baby brother, Dylan. 17 years since the men of this bureau took him. Shit. You want me to pick it up? The murder weapon? Really?